Hey guys, so during the school year, a lot of my bass buddies were asking me about my pedal board because it's quite expansive, especially for a bass player. And one of the main questions that always comes up is, where do I start? Like what pedals do I get first? Number one, it depends on what you're playing, what kind of bass you have, which kind of goes in with what you're playing. And honestly, the first thing you should ask yourself is, do I really need this? Obviously, as a bass player, technically we don't really need anything. However, there are some tools that you can use that will make your life much easier, again, depending on the gigs. So the first pedal I'm going to talk about that you should probably get, regardless of what style you play, regardless of what kind of string instrument you play, get a good tuner. For a very long time, I used just a little Korg tuner. It's really good to just have this. You can just hit it on, tune up real quick, and then you're back in business. I will go more into depth into these pedals individually, but for now, if you do want to know, this is the Polytune 3 by TC Electronic. Very good pedal, very well designed pedal. It's got a buffer in it, which is the main reason why I got this one as opposed to the tried and true Boss, was it the TU2 or something? I know a guy that's had the same Boss pedal on his board for probably, I think 20 years is what he said, or 16 years, almost 20 years. So the good thing is usually pedal tuners will last you a very long time because it's only doing one thing, or two things maybe, tuning and maybe muting your signal. So anyway, even if you don't get a pedal tuner, definitely get some kind of tuner. The next pedal that I would say to get in the grand scheme of things, if you're only going to get one pedal, get something similar to this. It looks very scary. There's a lot of knobs and all sorts of things that it can do. But basically, it's somewhat of a preamp. And this one has a little distortion button, which I don't use for distortion. I've got other pedals for that. So what you can do is turn that blend knob down, and then it's basically a clean boost. So you have this at the end of your chain, and you need a little bit of extra volume for your solos because frankly it's hard to push bass frequencies. So a little bit of extra dBs and you'll be heard for your solos, especially playing higher up where it doesn't project as well. And there's a bunch of other buttons I'll go into there. There's a color button that makes some of my other pedals sound better. Again, next video. Or third video, whatever video it's gonna be. So if you're gonna get this kind of pedal, which is great, it's got an XLR out. For bass players, a lot of times you're gonna be going straight into the board. They're not gonna mic up your amp, or they might go through, usually they'll go either out of your amp or out of a DI that they have. So a lot of bass players that I know have their own DI. Maybe not this one, maybe the Sans Amp Tech 21, those work really well. It's basically more or less the same pedal, does the same kind of thing, has the same kind of knobs, maybe different names, but basically the same pedal. Also, for really weird stuff, it's got a parallel out, so you have your normal output right here that'll go to your amp, your DI that'll go to the board, assuming there's a board at your gig, and then a parallel out if you're into really, really weird effects. So you could essentially have a clean bass going straight to the DI, going straight to your amp, and then a parallel output to maybe another amp or an effects loop or something to get all those crazy delays and weird wobbly sounds. But that way you still have the fundamental bass frequencies there to support the band, which is the main reason you're there as a bass player. Go into that later. And the third pedal, which I wouldn't say is as important, but it really has helped me out a lot in certain situations, is some kind of compressor. Now most bass compressors are compressor limiters, which means that it's keeping everything kind of in a little squashed dB zone. So everything that's lower than a certain volume is kind of brought up, but everything that's louder than a certain volume is brought down to a certain threshold. And you can adjust that with the output. adjust how loud the input is and get different effects that way. I'll go into the ratio and all that other stuff later. But if you're playing a lot of pop gigs, a lot of funk gigs, if you're playing for, 6 hours a night with no breaks, playing literally the same bass line over and over and over again, this little guy will help you keep everything nice and even. Even if you falter a little bit, like one note's not as loud as the other one, this will kind of help you pick up the pace. I called this a talent button in a previous video, and it's kind of true. It does, honestly, I think, make you sound a little better, or at least make you sound more consistent. So practice without this first, and then use it on gigs. That's what I say. So, if you want a good starting point, this guy, or this guy, get a tuner, even if it's not a pedal tuner, and use a compressor as a good way to kind of get yourself into actually having a board. Because then this will help you. You can put this at the beginning or the end of your chain, depending on what you're doing. Some people have both. I'm thinking about doing that eventually, once I get enough money to get another one. Maybe I'll try a different one. But overall, I will say I do like these little MXR pedals. I'm not sponsored. They're not paying me to say that yet. But stick around. So stick around, and I'll be going through a lot more pedals, a lot more gear. Is there anything else? Oh, you know what? There is one more pedal that I would suggest bass players look into as far as effects. Now, pretty much everything we've talked about are more logistical things, like making sure you're heard in the mix, giving yourself a little bit of extra volume during solos, keeping everything nice and even so the foundation of the band isn't, lost to a note or something, whatever, I don't know. Keeping yourself in tune. It's very basic things. But this pedal that I'm about to show you kind of bridges the gap, I feel like, especially as a bass player. So I've got this. This is the first octave pedal that I bought. It's Bass Octave Deluxe. It's a very nice, clean sounding octave pedal that has a little mid-range boost, again, for solo stuff, to help you cut through the mix a little bit better. But especially for 4-string players, if you gotta play some Stevie Wonder stuff that's an E flat, and you don't want to tune down, or you don't have a hip shot, if you got to get down to a C, or if you're playing a 5-string normal tuning, and you need a beat like a low B flat. So stay tuned, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, all that shiz. Support your local artists. Support your local musicians. Eat less meat. Eat more green. Pet a dog every once in a while, or a cat, if you're that kind of person. Stop and smell the roses, unless you're allergic. And keep playing bass. I'll catch you guys later.